record to this computer, and then you can stop it by clicking that black square.
Okay.
It'll stop.
All right.
Okay, so it's now recording. So April, you're on record. I will see you later.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay.
Close the door, if you don't mind.
Sounds good. April, I'm going to have you start again because you are coming into an interview. So come on in and show me how you're going to come in. That's okay. So what are you going to do?
I'm April Lindsay.
Nice to meet you and welcome. We are so happy to have you here and welcome to, what company are you interviewing with?
Just drew a blank.
Oh no.
It's Premier Painting.
Premier Painting.
Because they need an administrative assistant.
Okay. Well, April, welcome. And I want to tell you a little bit about how I will run a mock interview for you, just so that you're going to get the feedback that you hopefully need and will benefit you. As you're walking in, you started with good eye contact. First you came in and just sat down.
Yeah.
You're never going to do that.
No.
You will always walk in, make eye contact, shake hands. That was a nice firm handshake. Start with the person's title, their name, so Mr. Jones, Mrs., Doctor, whatever they are. Find out what they're called.
Okay.
If they invite you to call them Tom, Harry, Sharon, perfect. But for you to presume that you're best friends to begin with puts you slightly at a disadvantage when you're interviewing, okay? And you weren't introduced to me with a last name, so you wouldn't have known. So what you did was just fine, but I wanted to let you know that in a regular interview, until your interview person tells you, oh, please call me Tom, then call them by their last name. Okay? But everything else. So as we're looking, you walked in, very pleasant. First thing I noticed is well-dressed. Your appearance says, I am business. I am here because I'm not going to the beach. I'm not ready to just hang out at the shopping mall. I am definitely business. So that sets you one step ahead of those who are coming in their torn jeans. So tell me a little bit about yourself, April. What makes you think that your connection with our painting industry would be a good match?
Well, I'm currently getting my business administration bachelor's degree at College of America, and I've learned a lot of great accounting skills and management skills. I've picked up a lot of things throughout my life, including how to listen, how to ask appropriate questions. I've worked at Walmart and I've learned customer service skills at their customer service desk. They get a lot of irate customers, and I've gone and calmed them down to where we can have an actual conversation about why they're upset and get it fixed for them as fast as I can. There's been, I've worked at Arby's off and on for many years, and I've managed to work from being just a cashier to being a trainer. And I trained a lot of managers into the management position before they were willing to make me a manager, which lasted until I went off to college, where I was trying to get a teaching degree, and I ended up changing over to business, and then ended up with an associate degree in restaurant hotel management, which recently I was able to actually use the hotel part of it as a night auditor, which is very boring. So I'm looking forward to working with people again and actually having conversations with people who are just really tired or really hungry for breakfast. Although apparently I make really good eggs, which is just getting them up at the hotel, but everyone's like, oh, these are so good. And I'm like, yes, I wish I had shredded cheese for you. And I've had several people at the hotel go, I really wish you'd stay. I'm going to miss having you here. All my fellow employees were, oh, you should stay. You should stay. And I'm like, I have a brand new grandson at home that really needs my help because my daughter is going to be fully lost. And so this summer I've gotten to be a grandmother and caretaker and made my daughter grow up, which has actually been really good for her and for me, because it's funny, reverse psychology is working. And she's like, Mom, you have to go back to work. We need more money. I'm like, I understand. I would love to go back to work. I would love to go and do something in the field I am working on, which includes the administrative assistant, which I would love to do so I can move up to just being an administrative person and helping other people and getting the appropriate people out to paint houses. And I think another past employment that I had was working for a direct tech. I had to talk to customers on the phone as well as the technicians and their bosses. So I got to multitask and work on the computer. And I loved that job. It was wonderful. Then they closed our call center and opened it up in another state and didn't ask me to move. But it was a good learning experience. I was there for 3 to 5 years, I think. And so a lot of those managers there were like, if we could package you and take you with us, we would. Because I got along with everybody in the office, got along with everybody on the phones, even the techs were like, what? You guys aren't going to be taking our calls anymore? But you were able to calm them down during like the Christmas season when snow was on their dishes and we couldn't get to them, which was a lot of fun to explain to people. It is okay to send your husband bundled up with a broom to knock the snow off your dish. As long as there's no ice on your roof, you will be fine. We'll get a technician out to you as soon as possible. A lot of them were like, oh, really? Oh, that'd be great. We're missing the football season. Yeah, I don't watch football, but okay. Diehard fans. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were in Maine and in New York. For people who think New Yorkers are mean, a lot of them are not. They're just really frustrated because they can't get what they want in the wintertime, which I think is pretty much everywhere. Mm-hmm. But I learned a lot from that job. I learned a lot from all the jobs that I have had. Being a parent, of course, means that you have to sacrifice certain things and be able to work and multitask and cook and pick up things and make sure the child isn't electrocuting themselves. And doing that as a grandparent is a lot more fun because unfortunately I can't send him home at the end, but I can send him to his room. So, and I've been trying to send him to his mom a lot more. Just helps if his mom would actually say, oh, yeah, I want to be a mom. Yeah, give me my son. She's in that postpartum depression section of it. So, but he turns 1 next month, which is really exciting. And he's finally figured out I can crawl and chase the cat. So it's fun to watch him do that and trying to balance doing school and babysitting and getting a job and everything.
Well, tell me how that would work for you. It sounds like you've got a really busy life. How are you going to balance a full-time career job, a full-time career administrative assistant position, and still maintain what you're seeing as being important in your family life? Because we need total focus.
Mhm.
So tell me about that.
When I'm in a job, I focus on the job. When I get phone calls from family, I let them know, hey, I'm at work. We will deal with this when I get home. When I get home, that's when I deal with the family. I love going to work. Gets me away from my daughter for a couple hours. I focus on whatever project that I need to get done at work. It allows me to do something separate from family. It takes my mind off of my family for however long I have to be at work. I'm not one of those people that sit there and watch the clock. Not even in class do I watch the clock. Everybody's like, hey, it's time to go. And it's like, oh, class is over? So when I'm really focused on a project, if I get it done early, I will start on another one, or I will reorganize something. One thing my bosses at the hotel enjoyed was the fact that I reorganized our nightly paperwork to where it actually made sense. I don't know who did it before. And even my boss was like, well, I've been meaning to get around to that. And I'm like, but now we all understand it. And they had a new system that was put in where it actually showed us our numbers. And I asked my boss, I said, do you want me to add this to the paperwork so that you have what we started at and what we ended at for the day? And he goes, yes. So that's the paperwork they're using now. And when I went down there to visit one day, he was like, we're still using it and I understand it and I can actually run my hotel. Oh, good.
So your computer skills would be an advantage to us. Tell me some more about your computer skills.
So I can go into a computer system once I get used to the system. And sometimes I just go in there and look around to see what all is in there so that I know what I'm doing. And once I've gotten used to it, I can usually flow through it with no problems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to type really fast. I do spell check. And if I get frustrated, I will stop for a moment. We'll work on something else, then I will go back. But I always get done what I'm doing on the computer. I don't leave just anything on there. I always make sure it's in a secure location where it's not going to suddenly disappear. I have had my manager, where'd you put this one? And I'm like, oh, it's under the one that's filed Night Auditor. And she's like, oh, that's very appropriate. I'm like, yes, isn't it? So she's able to find things that if I miss something in an email to the boss's boss, then she can go back in and grab it. But everybody else is like, oh, I don't know what I did with that. And I'm like, oh no, you have to know your system.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know where all your files are.
Right.
You can't just tell them, oh, I don't know where I put that. It doesn't work that well. Everybody needs to know where everything is.
So you're kind of feeling that organization is one of your strengths.
Yes. If it's not well organized, my house is not organized, but wherever I work has to be really well organized for me.
Okay.
In order to work it.
Okay.
And if I have to rearrange things for myself, I always make sure everybody else knows that, hey, I've moved this file to this location. So if you're looking for it, look here or ask me and I will show it to you.
Okay. So communications, so organization tends to be a strength. Communication skills with peers, with coworkers. Tell me about that.
So since being a night auditor recently, when I went in to take over for someone, I'd ask them, how was your day? Is there any problems that I need to know about? Is there anything I need to work on that you weren't able to get done? Is there anything I need to know that's happening with the computer system? Because occasionally it would go down and we'd have to go to a different computer system. We had one person who wasn't well organized with the computer, and half the time would forget to tell me that certain systems were not working. So I had to find out, and then I'd end up calling my boss, and I hated doing that because waking him up made his wife angry. He's like, oh, I'll answer the phone. I'm like, I know. I don't think your wife likes the phone ringing at 2 o'clock in the morning, but okay. But yeah, so I would always talk to the person I'm taking over for. And then when the people come in to take over for me, I let them know, hey, this is the major stuff that has happened. It is written down in our communication log, but I am also letting you know in person.
Okay.
And a lot of times they'd be reading it and I'd be explaining it, because I'll write something down and then remember another fact that I forgot to write down. And so it helps them out a lot to know, oh, okay, so the eggs were not thawed completely. So if there's any complaints about the eggs today, it will understand. And we've had pans that have ended up being melted, and people complained about the look of the pans, and I'd have to apologize, and then I would let the other people at the front desk know, and then during the day, if people came and complained about what the pans looked like, they're like, we are well aware, and we do have other pans on their way. So nobody was ever left out of the loop from my shift.
Okay, so you're really working on the oral and the written, the customer service directly to the customer, the coworker, and chain of command. You feel, tell me how you would communicate with your boss. How do you feel that situation needs to occur?
I feel that anytime there's an issue, the first person that I need to speak to is my direct supervisor. Then if they're unable to help me, then I can go to the next step, and I just work my way up until I get to somebody who can help me. At the hotel, I had the front desk manager who rarely answered her phone. So I would end up calling the general manager, which he was always like, have you tried her? Oh yeah, multiple times. Left many voicemails and text messages. He's like, okay, so this is what we do. I say, okay. And he'll help me through what he knows, because I don't think he's looked through everything. And then we'll figure it out together, and then we'll get it done. And then the guest is happy, and he's happy. And he comes in, he goes, you know, if I could give you a raise, I would. Which was one reason why I left. Couldn't give you a raise, even though I was promised, which was really irritating to me. But I understood after 6 months, and he finally explained it to me. Then I was like, oh, okay. So there's a freeze. I understand. It's like, do you understand that I need to go find another job? And he said, yes. I said, okay. But I just decided not to work over the summer instead, which I'm okay with. But now I'm ready to actually get back into the workforce and actually.
Okay, as office administrator, you are going to have a significant amount of time. It will be daytime hours, so that seems like a positive for you. But you will have a significant amount of time on your own, as all of the crews are out doing what they're supposed to be. But there will be the phone, the computer, the scheduling. You will be responsible for a lot. Can you multitask? And tell me what that looks like for you.
Yes, I can multitask. Being able to answer the phones, pull up things on the computer system, have a conversation as I'm pulling up stuff, finding what's needed, getting that taken care of, and then having paperwork to do right afterwards. I have no problem doing it that way. If I'm working on something and somebody calls in and says, hey, painter didn't show up, I think I gave him the wrong address, I'll look up who their painter is, say, excuse me, let me put you on hold for a moment, call the painter, give them the correct address, call and get the customer back on. If I need to, I can connect all three of us. So we have a three-way conversation, and the painter can find the customer
Okay.
without
Major disruption. Okay, that sounds good, because what we really truly need is to make sure that our customers are happy, our employees are being as efficient as possible, and that our billing gets taken care of. So that takes us to billing. The efficiency of sending out the bills, getting all of the paperwork between our accounting and the bank, and everything ready for taxes. Capable?
Yeah, I've worked with QuickBooks,
Okay.
both on the computer as well as online. I personally like the online one. It allows quicker sending of the money to the bank and sending back to payroll. Much easier. However, I have done it on just the computer one. That takes a little bit longer because it involves emails.
Okay.
But the online one is very simple, and it updates constantly. So there's no issues with the computer system itself. And as long as I double check my work before I send it, which I usually do, there's no issues on my end either.
Okay, that sounds like that could handle a lot of our issues with making sure paperwork is taken care of. Questions you would have for me? Questions you would have about our company?
I'm not 100% sure from looking at the internet and researching the company of how many are like the locations of the company. Just Fort Collins, or is Loveland included?
Probably all of northern Colorado. We really are in that process of expanding, so we'd like to handle everything from the Wyoming border to North Denver. But at this point, our focus is mostly Fort Collins.
And there are lots of houses in Fort Collins, so definitely stay in business for quite a while.
Yes, that's our plan.
Yep.
That's our
I
plan.
know that my parents' old neighborhood, with the people there, will repaint their houses every 2 years. So if I can get any of them to come over to the company and use Premier Painting, I will, because I'm still friends with a lot of those people that are still living there.
Well, if they do a good job, they should not need to be painting every 2 years. So we would like to show them a quality job. So that would be lovely. And anything else that you would need to know at this point?
Sorry, I just drew a blank. I'm going to be direct. Am I hired?
We would need to finish all of our interviews. We have 4 set up. And once we finish the interviews, we will be back in touch with you. So that would be a great opportunity. And thank you very much. This has been a joy to have an opportunity to talk with you.
And I will get back in touch with you within a week to make sure.
We'll be in touch, yes. Okay, have a seat and I'll tell you a few things here. So as you have your form, this is the form for College America. Your appearance, proper dress, makeup, jewelry, overall cleanliness. You are stellar, no problem. You've got that right. Eye contact, body language, poise, and overall impression. You handled that. You kept that eye contact. I know you were nervous. Being in an interview situation, it's hard. We don't get much practice.
My last interview was 5 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm like, wow, this goes well.
We don't get a lot of practice. It's very difficult. And I know that. A lot of the situation that I want to put you through is making you realize that the interviewer is looking for the perfect match. You're looking for the perfect match. So realistically, we have the same goal. If you are the perfect match, then it is set for everybody. If you're not the perfect match, it is best to find that out early and for everybody to part ways. So we want to make sure that that happens.
And
But you did a good job. There were a few moments where you went, and you could feel that little breathe, that little, oh no, now what do I do? It's okay. It is okay to take a breath. It's okay to pause. One of the things that you do when you start to get nervous is you start to tell a long story. Try to minimize your stories, particularly your stories about your daughter. You know, the idea of having family, of having a grandson, you know, all of those things are delightful. But I get
not
the
real
impression,
appropriate.
well, I get the impression that your daughter can sometimes be a challenge to you. If your employer gets the idea that your daughter can be a challenge to you, the very first thing that happens is the red flags that say, uh-oh, family issues, she's going to be out of work because of family over and over and over, and it's going to be an absentee problem. So minimize the amount of time that you spend talking about family. Don't negate the fact, don't hide the fact that you've got family. We all have family. We're supposed to have family, and we're supposed to love them dearly and be excited about them. And yes, you can say, oh, and just celebrated my grandson's first birthday. What a delight. Enough. But the idea that my daughter wants me out of the house so that I can earn more money because she's dependent on me makes your employer think, oh no, this is going to be an issue where we're going to have family dynamics that are going to take you out of work, and you're not going to be the best employee. My feeling from what you said is that you are a strong employee, that you've got a work ethic. So I don't think that that would be an issue, but you don't know what someone else listening to you tell a short little quip will end up thinking. And the other one on that same kind of bend is, and this person didn't really do their job, but I took over and I did this. Or this person really couldn't finish their work. And the one thing that you don't want to do is badmouth anybody in your prior employment. Don't badmouth them. Okay. You can say, yes, I worked for company XYZ. I learned a lot during my time there. Now, that is a true statement. No matter what, I learned what to do and I learned what not to do. I learned what not to do. If you saw things that absolutely did not fit your work ethic, your ethical behavior, your organizational skills, what you've learned here as current business practices, what you know the model of business for that particular organization was, and it was happening or wasn't happening, you still learned something. You learned what to do or what not to do. So I learned a tremendous amount, and I'm bringing that knowledge forward to you. So yes, and here you spoke, I have customer service. I had direct customer contact. I was a trainer. I was a manager. I was a night auditor. I've had day experience. I've had night experience. I've had all of this. So all of these things are really strong, positive things. I was a night auditor. It's very boring. I was a night auditor. I found that I personally am much better with daytime hours because that's where my strength in attention, in detail, in interaction with people shows, you know. So take all of your comments and turn them into a positive statement so that no one can go back and say, wow, she must have really hated that job, or that company must be absolutely horrible. Because guess what? We live in a small community. Even though Fort Collins is getting bigger and bigger all the time, guaranteed, if you say company XYZ is terrible, somebody that you talk to is going to know somebody at that company, and they're going to say, and you know what April had to say about your company? You don't want that happening. So state things in the positive. Recognize the fact that it is an honest and true statement to say, and I learned a lot.
Okay.
Because that covers a multitude. It covers a lot. We learn from good and we learn from bad. So preparedness has answers to expected questions, can summarize qualifications and abilities, shows knowledge of employer, asks follow-up questions, has copy of resume. Okay, so all of those except for copy of resume. As you walk in the door, the thing that you want to do is probably have a very nice little folder. Not a fancy briefcase, not a big leather binder, but just a nice small notebook or a folder. I like a folder because I have a place to put a couple papers. I typically will put my resume on one side, perhaps my cover letter.
Okay.
And then on the other side, if I have a letter of recommendation from somebody, I'd put that in there too. And on the other side, I would put a couple of blank sheets of paper and the questions that I've thought about. What are my questions for this company? Remember how that felt when I said, and do you have any questions for me? And you're going, oh, I did. Oh, wait a second. Let me think about it. You had those questions. You did think about it. And all of a sudden they were gone. That happens. You get into an interview and you will have everything rehearsed. You know, certainly you went through all those interview questions. You went through, what are your qualifications? What makes you the best? Why will you be a good match for this company? What are the expectations? You knew all of this information. But for you to have the questions, write them down. Sometimes if you don't want them on the top of your paper, I will have an index card that I just tuck in, or a little sticky note. And that helps me just to remember. Sometimes that little flash of color, you're wearing this bright pink. You might just on a pink sticky note, put down your question. You might not even have to look at it. All you have to do is see that pink sticky note. You go, oh, I remember that question. It's just something to help trigger. Okay? Anything you can do to help you feel better during that time.
Yeah, at one point I could feel my cheeks flaming up, and I'm like, okay, calm down.
Right.
So I was listening to what you were saying, and at the same time I'm telling myself, calm down, you're good.
Mhm.
This is not that bad. You're okay. Because when I get real embarrassed, my cheeks just flame up, and then people are like, are you okay? Do you need water? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just.
And, and I will tell my students that I work with a lot of students who are going out on interviews, and I will tell them, be prepared. Watch what you wear. What you have put on as far as clothing is perfect because it comes up high. We tend to start to get that red color right here on our chest, and it goes all the way up, goes right up our neck. Well, an interviewer can see that. And if you're wearing something low cut and it starts creeping on up, you've reached that level. So wear something with a collar. Perfect idea. You are set. You did just fine. Yes. Did I see a little pink in your cheek? Certainly. Did it stay under control? Yes, it did. You did just fine. So impact, well-spoken, listens well, gives appropriate answers, good questions about the employer. All of the above, you did just fine. Again, make sure that you stay on topic.
About how many questions do you think is appropriate to ask the employer?
Depends on what the employer wants.
Okay.
Sometimes they are going to open it up and say, and anything else you want? Usually 1 or 2 questions is plenty.
Okay.
I would go ahead and have 3 ready, because if you are a good listener, they may have already answered one of those questions during your time. So you don't want to ask it again if they've already asked it.
I remember from a previous interview that I've had, the employer actually answered all of the questions that I had. And I had eaten at their restaurant, it was for Subway. I'd eaten there many times. And I had a few questions, and she answered all of them. And she looks at me, she goes, do you have questions? I said, you've already answered them. I don't have anything else. And she goes, oh, okay. But when I did answer her question, she's like, there's 2 types of people. She goes, there's those that learn customer service skills and those who are born with it. And she goes, I think you were born with them.
Well, good.
And I was like, cool. So I ended up starting as a sandwich maker, and she had me train in several different places.
Mm-hmm.
And then she gave me my own store, and my own employees who did not want a manager sabotaged everything I did. So she, instead of firing me, which she was very nice about, because she's like, I understand. These people are really hard to work with. She goes, let me put you back as a sandwich maker at Walmart. It's okay. So I got to know all the Walmart managers as they came through. So when they said, we are now hiring, they stole our manager. So she's like, you should come in. So I went over there, and because I already knew all the managers, I went through 3 interviews real quick and got hired. And then they did all this weird change about on payment and raises and everything. So I ended up moving from cashier to customer service to semi-training the new people on self-checkouts and on registers, which they're like, it's so nice somebody actually knows what they're doing. I'm like, I've been here long enough, I hope so. And then one of the department's managers goes, "You should come over here." I'm like, "I kind of need me up here." She goes, "Oh, you can still work a register or something, but come over here. We need your organization skills." So I moved to a department which happened to include the school supplies when it wasn't school time. I reorganized one entire section. I was like, "I need those separators." And she goes, "Oh, well, here you go." And so I got it all organized. And she's like, "It's so pretty over here." I was like, "Yeah, every night I come through every like 3 or 4 times just picking up after people." And she goes, "Well, yeah, that's normal." She goes, "But you can see the different thing." She was very impressed. And so, and then they taught me how to cut fabric and measure it and everything. I was like, okay, too bad the fabric section and the office section weren't next to each other. But got lots of exercise.
There you go.
And even the front managers, "Can you come back and just work registers for us? We have dumb people up here." And I'm like, "You're hiring 16-year-olds. What do you think? They're not going to stick around."
Okay.
A lot of them do.
Well, and again, watch what you're saying. They're dumb people. You know, watch your words. But you know, I get what you're saying. But that's so. You're ask good questions. You can go ahead and say, "Oh, I did come prepared with questions, but you have done such a," and you might even open your notebook and show that you've got questions, not even show me your actual questions, but say, "I did come prepared with questions because I've been thinking so much about your company. But you've done such a fine job of sharing information. You've answered them. As I continue to think about what I've learned, I may have more questions," and just leave it at that. I may have more, or I'm sure I will have more. So that says, I'm thinking, I've been thinking, I am very invested in your company. And then, you know, so overall, I would say on this one, you definitely are set. This is certainly, I would want you to come prepared with
Extra copy.
and it's just a single copy. The reason that you bring it with you, and you'll say, "That's not necessary, I've already emailed it." But it is typically on a day when a company is interviewing. They will have 5 or 6 interviews set up a half an hour apart, and they will go ahead and welcome you at the door, give you, you know, shake your hand, have you come in and sit down, ask you a few questions, and then usher you out the door. If you put, and you say, "And here's a copy of my resume just in case you didn't have one, have mine handy."
Okay.
Often companies don't want to use their own ink to print 50. That's a lot of paper. That's a lot of ink. They want to get it down to the last 2. But if you walk in and you're just printing 1, you say, "And here's a copy of it." And you've got it here, and they can say, "April, and tell me about that time when you were working at Walmart. Tell me about that time when you were over at the hotel. And how did this experience connect with our painting business?" So they're glancing here as they're talking to you, and they're writing their notes. So you are creating this little circle in front of them, but their focus is going to be on you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So questions you have for me on the interview process. How did it feel? Did you get good information?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of practice with interviews. When I was on break, I was trying to practice my elevator speech. I kept messing up on it because I just typed it up so that I knew. Because if I type it, then I remember it better. And if I type it on the day of the interview, I tend to remember it a lot better. But I was outside and I was so nervous. I was like, does it sound better this way or does it sound better this way? And then I'd like trip myself up. I'm like, okay, just fly with it and see what happens.
Yeah, it's hard, and I get that. So let me go ahead and see if we can get this. This
Yeah.
little mouse is just. So